Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the virtual program today, Mission Focused Leadership with Kristen Reeder. I am Brittany Spillman, and I serve as the Cary Center Director of Community and Collegiate Programs. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to thank this year's sponsors. This virtual program's presenting sponsor is the Walker Area Community Foundation. The Walker Area Community Foundation is a nonprofit grant-making organization building the permanent capital needed to daily facilitate community conversations, inspire action, and empower partners. This year's Community and Collegiate Program sponsors have pledged to support our efforts in providing meaningful programming for the nonprofit sector. Thank you to Auburn University Outreach, the East Alabama Community Foundation, the River Region United Way, Auburn University Outreach Office of Public Service, Social U, the Drummond Thorne Stukes Fund for Excellence, and a community service grant made possible by State Senator Randy Price and State Representative Joe Lever. Kristen Reeder is the founder of Legacy Leadership Coaching, a leadership development and HR consulting company. She serves as the executive director of Leadership Lee County. Previously, she has served as the human resources director for the city of Auburn. Kristen earned her undergraduate degree in human resource management and her graduate degree in management, strategy, and leadership. She is a certified John Maxwell team coach, trainer, and speaker. Please join me in welcoming Kristen Reeder as she shares about mission-focused leadership.
Good afternoon, y'all. Happy Thursday. We're on to Friday, which always deserves a big cheer. So I just want to start by thanking y'all for joining us today. I know you have tons of other things that you could be doing. I'm guessing with all the cameras off, some of you may even be eating lunch, so you're multitasking, which I love. But I'm honored that you would be here today with me and allow me the opportunity to share with you a little bit about what I've learned over the past 25 years as I've studied leadership and HR. And so I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and it would probably be helpful if y'all had a paper handy and do a couple of reflection exercises, but maybe take some notes as well. So let me share my screen. And see that. And we will definitely have time for questions. But I know Brittany's going to be monitoring the chat for us because if there is anything I can answer for y'all, please feel free. I would love to help where I can. I think about the seat that you're sitting in and the difficulties sometimes that come with having to balance the needs of the organization, the needs of the volunteers, the needs of the participants. And in this world where people are so great about giving us feedback and ideas, sometimes that can get us to a place that can be overwhelming. And I know for me, as Brittany mentioned to you, I get to wear two different hats. So I do two things that I love, but I'm careful that I'm focused on what I need to be. And when I have in my executive director hat for Leadership Lee County, I love that people are willing to share their ideas and give me feedback. But sometimes, if we're being honest, it's a lot and it can feel overwhelming. And so Brittany asked me probably about 6, 7 months ago, could I develop a topic about this? And it occurred to me that mission focused leadership, that's the key to how we can lead well, especially in the nonprofit section. Did you know that there is a recent study by the Center for Effective Philanthropy that found that 95% of nonprofit leaders are concerned about burnout? 95%, with 4% reporting that staff burnout has been very much a concern in the past year. Here is surprised by that right now. because sometimes doing the greatest work, serving people, can also lead to burnout. And so I encourage you, and it is my prayer for you today, that you're going to have a space where you can be open, where we can pour into you, give you some guidance, some practical things that you can take back and use to make your leadership easier and better for those around you. All right. So, thinking about it, did you know that we make over 35,000 decisions a day? 35,000 decisions a day, which sounds crazy. Now, that includes our just normal decisions of putting on which shoe to which foot, our habitual decisions of driving, like the route we take to work. But still, that is a vast number of decisions. Like our emotional capacity to make every day. In fact, 266 decisions are just made about food. I mean, think about it. When you're going to eat a meal, which utensil are you going to use? Are you going to use a paper or cloth napkin? The amount of mental strain that comes with decisions is tremendous. And so it's no wonder that we get burned out. So when you think about when you're making decisions for your organization, what are the things that you're considering when you make those decisions? So let's talk about first. What is, you're probably sitting here saying, all right, Chris, what even is mission focused? Because it sounds fancy. Thank you, Chat GPT. What is it at its heart? And so mission focused leadership is making decisions that can the nonprofit's core purpose. And the reason it matters is because when we're not focused in this way, you can find yourself drifting from the purpose of your organization. It can lead to efficiency. You're saying yes to everything. The odds of you being effective at any of it are slim. Burnout. We just talked about the emotional toll that our decisions take. It can leave you feeling directionless if you don't have it. Again, because you're saying yes to everything coming at you. And then obviously you're feeling overwhelmed. So, when was the last time that you asked yourself as you were making a decision, how does this align with our mission? Do you ask that question as you're going through it? And so I want to encourage you. One of the reasons that I wanted you to have paper and pen handy, although y'all and your overachieving selves, you probably have a whole notebook with several pens as backups. But as we're going through this, the way that I want to ensure that you have practical things is that you're going to have questions to ask. I'm going to equip you today with questions that you can ask as you're going through the process so that when it comes time for you to apply what you've learned, you'll have the tools needed. And we're going to do a couple exercises as well. Now, Brittany mentioned no stress, though. Y'all are going to get the information. It is there for you to use, but it will be helpful for you to have as we go along. All right. So, thinking through, we've defined it. So, what is the core of a mission? Because you need to grab hold when thinking through this. And what do you need to have so that you can begin ensuring what your mission focus? Because, my friends, here's what I know. You got into what you got into because you have a passion for it, because you want to make a difference. And I know for a lot of you, you're a one-man shop. And so it's even more important when you don't have a team around you that you stay focused. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make is not taking care of yourself, because a good leader knows that in order for the people around them to get better, in order for the organization to get better, you have to get better. And so, again, I just want to say to you, thank you. Thank you for taking a moment, because the people that you serve are going to benefit so much from you taking the time to make you better. All right, so let's dig into it. I can feel the excitement about it coming through the computer, that you're just excited to go. And so there's three things I really want you to think about when we're thinking about mission focused leadership. And the first one is clarity of the mission. Now, this is one of those things that my kids would tell me is a duh kind of a moment, because you would think, but the danger that we can encounter is when we make assumptions. So everything that you do, you should run it through the mission test. You should be saying, is this mission focused? And one of the ways that you can do that is to keep mission statements around. I'd love those of you that are able to, can you give me a show of hands? Do you have a mission statement? Maybe. If you don't, I can't encourage you enough at how important it is to do this. And y'all, we are spoiled nowadays. You can put something into Chat GPT and it will come up with a great mission statement for you. So if you don't have anything at this point, that might be one way that you step into it. The question, and here's that reflection question you have, does my team or anybody that I interact with know your mission by heart and act on it daily? Is this something that they have clarity on? Okay. Using it as part of your values driven decision making. Now, what's interesting is even in decisions like who am I going to align with? Who am I going to partner with? It's important that you think about, are their values in line with my mission? They used to make fun of me. Brittany told you that I worked for the city of Auburn in the HR department. And y'all, I was unapologetically all about spending anything that my department spent within the city of Auburn. Why? Because it's this tax that funds what the city does, along with other revenue streams. But I knew if I was really going to be committed, if we were going to live out our values, that the city of Auburn is a great place, then I was going to invest in their health. So that's just an example of what I'm talking about when I refer to values driven decision making. Are our decisions reinforcing or compromising our core values? So ask yourself that question. Now, here's the big one: communicating the mission effectively. It is amazing what the research shows, that even to the point when you feel like you have said what your mission is over and over and over, it's not enough. As human beings, you really cannot tell us enough how or what our mission is. As the leader of the organization, it falls on you to be communicating it tirelessly. Now, y'all, I'm not talking about that you need to just necessarily stand up in every staff meeting and just recite the mission statement. Like, this needs to be the core of who you are and what you do, but make it fun. Make what you want to think about ways that you can infuse it whether it's your board, whether it's your volunteer or your team. And I'll give you an example if it might be helpful. At the city, we created what we called a peer recognition program. And so we have core values. And one of the ways that we decided that we could make it a living, breathing thing was that we would just create these cards where when an employee, another employee, living out one of those values, the vision, the mission, we could fill out a card on their behalf and turn it in to be recognized in our newsletter. So you can see, though, this is just another way that we were able to continually communicate our mission effectively. Because, my friends, if your people don't know it, they're not going to follow it. And so I want you to ask yourself, how often do I communicate our mission, team discussions, and external partnerships? In fact, I want you to take a minute because, again, part is that you would just not leave here having listened to something for an hour over your lunch break or part of your day, but that you would have actionable steps that you could take and implement right away. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, and I want you to sit and think, how often do I make my mission statement? But then I also want you to write down one or two ways that you could communicate your mission more in your daily operations. And so you're going to write down how you can communicate your mission statement more in your daily operations. And like I said, I'm going to give you just a minute to do that. Take 30 more seconds. Hey, Brittany, do you know if my video is disabled on your end? All right, y'all. I'm going to keep going. So that is one piece, right? So now we've just talked about what is that? Let's talk about what does it look like when we apply it in our leadership practices. And so there's maybe three areas that I think about when, sorry, y'all, thinking about, you can hear me? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Get me to shut out of here. Shut out of here.
Mhm.
Kristen, we're able to see your slideshow. It was just that you went off screen, but we can see the slideshow. We couldn't hear you for a while either. I don't know if you're speaking right now, but we see the slideshow.
All right. How about, let me see.
There's
Oh, no. How do you want?
video.
Okay. How many of y'all in your life have had technology issues? So it's good, right? Brittany's fantastic. She came right to the rescue. So apparently you had more than enough time, I'm guessing, to write down what you were thinking. And whoever was giving feedback, I couldn't tell. Thank you for letting us know that. So I appreciate y'all's patience with it. And we're going to head right into the next module because I want to be sure and honor your time today. And so we've just gone through kind of talking about what it is to have those core foundations, right? To mission focused leadership. But now let's talk about applying them to our leadership practices. And there's kind of three big areas that I think about, right? And the first one is our strategic decision making. And so you are responsible for making some pretty big picture decisions. And sometimes you have to make them pretty quickly. But I want you to keep in mind and be aware of the fact that even though there may be sensitivity to time on your decisions, you still have to think about making them mission focused. When I was thinking through, like an example to give y'all as we go through this, one that I have seen happen time and time again, and y'all, let me be clear. Look at this face. It has happened to me too. That's why I've learned the lesson. I would have a team member leave, right? And I bet we've all been there. And you're like, oh goodness, I have to start covering the work. Well, you're already probably overworked. Now all of a sudden, you or somebody on your team's got another workload. Well, the first thing on your mind is just getting a warm body in the seat, right? We got to get somebody to do the work. But y'all, huge mistake. Because if you allow that short-term pain of doing the double duty of their jobs to rush you into making a hiring decision, that this is a person you're going to bring on your team and you end up stuck with somebody that's not a fit. I wish I could see y'all's faces now because I'm guessing again, a lot of you have been there. That is no fun. And so I would caution you, and this is just one example, when you feel an urgency, I know it can be difficult in the moment, but you have to be able to come out of that mindset and think long term. It is so much more important that you get the right person in that seat. And in the long run, that's what's going to make you and your organization successful. So when you're thinking about your decisions, ask yourself, am I making decisions for long-term impact or short-term convenience? Don't fall into the trap of that short-term urgency derailing you from what's best in the long term, because I promise you, the long-term pain of a bad hire is much, much worse than the short-term pain of covering the gap with that. Now, this can even roll into you going from comfortable to uncomfortable. In our decision making, it's easy to let that be a bias that we have. It's easy to continue to do what we've always done and not take risk. But is that what's best for the organization? Is that what is needed for your nonprofit? So don't allow the fear of being uncomfortable to stop you from doing the right thing. Okay? All right. Let's talk about when we need to apply it to when it's resource allocation and sustainability. So, most of you have to fundraise. I'm guessing most of us on this call, and I know in my business, we don't just have a money tree laying out back. Although, if you do, could you please put that in the chat box or text me and let me know? I'd really love to have some one on one time with you. But for most of us, our funding is a big deal. And so, again, though, I would caution you. Sometimes you have to invest the money into something that's good long term for the mission of the organization rather than what's best for the short term. And again, I'm going to give you an example that I can think of. I've had the opportunity and the honor to work with some humane societies in the past. And there's this program out there that they can send their staff members to, where those staff members can be trained on how to train dogs to behave a little better. Because oftentimes when people go in to adopt, they're put off by the craziness of the dog. And so in the immediate moment, it can seem difficult to shift our focus to spending money that way. But in the long term, isn't our mission to have the animals fit with a loving home? So isn't it better to do that than hit something in the moment? Now, again, I'm not talking about mission critical stuff, y'all. I mean, if you got to pay the power bill, you got to pay the power bill. But other things that maybe you could put aside. And so ask yourself as you're making this decision, are we investing in what truly advances our mission? Or are you just maintaining the status quo? Yee, that's a good one, isn't it? That's tough. Okay, I'm all about the HR side. So here comes the HR part of this because your people are your most important thing. Okay, the money and the people, those are your two most important things. If you're not taking the time to lead and create a culture that's all about the mission, you're not doing your job. If it is okay, I'd allow you to give me a little grace for the moment because I'm going to speak some truth that sometimes we tend to get busy and we tend to get burnt out and we tend to get overwhelmed. And the whole thought of dealing with a person coming and asking us a question is overwhelming. And we sometimes don't give our best self to it. But y'all, at the end of the day, you're the leader for the reason. And it's not easy, but it's not about you. It's about your people and it's about the mission. And so you've got to be able to step out of yourself and focus on your team. And I know that means sometimes you might have to stay later, or that might mean you have to take a quick walk around the block to get yourself together. But don't miss the opportunity that you have to empower your team because they're going to further the mission much more than you ever could alone. And so I would encourage you, allow them the safe space to challenge your decisions. Now, I'm not saying allow them to be rude or disrespectful. No. But there's two different ends of the spectrum. You can't allow that, but you also shouldn't. You have to be careful and make sure they feel safe to say something because we're human. And if you have a team, and even if it's not people that report to you, a board or mentors or just peers, you need them to feel safe to speak into you, to question and challenge the decisions that you're making. There's no fear in that. You can't take it personally. Because if you don't create that safe space for your team, then you're going to miss the boat. And they're going to feel like they don't have buy-in and accountability, and they're not going to be invested to help you grow. And so when you're thinking of delegation and empowerment, the best way I know to tell you the difference, you delegate the task. You hand the task over. With empowerment, you hand over trust. And so don't think that you're empowering your employees when you hand a task to them. You empower your employees when you give them the space to speak their passions and their beliefs. Okay. And by the way, a quick tell is if you really are empowering your team, when was the last time they did challenge you on something or offer a level up on a decision that you did? If that has not happened, then I would tell you this may be a moment you need to step back and ask, do my team members feel empowered to question if something is off mission? After all, it's not about us. All right, so we're going to take another moment because I want you to think about this. How can you, in your world, in your organization, and whether it is a team of reports that directly you supervise, or whether maybe it's a board, or whether it's a group of volunteers, how can you empower them more? So I want you to take a moment. Again, I'm going to give you a couple minutes, and I want you to really think about what is something that you could do today. And it doesn't have to be anything like great, y'all. It literally can be something like you call a staff meeting, you call some meeting, and you simply say, hey, if I have not told you this before, can I tell you it now? I welcome your feedback. I welcome your ideas. And if you think something that I'm doing is out of line with our mission, tell me about it in a respectful way. All right, so take 2 minutes and think about what you can do to empower those around you. All right, about 30 more seconds. Okay. I hope y'all were able to come up with some good stuff. And by the way, I meant to tell you this on the last question. If y'all want to put your ideas in the chat so you can share them, that'd be perfectly fine. That is the beauty of these kinds of things. We can learn from each other. Okay. All right. So here we go. You've got the core values of it. You've talked about how to apply it. But Kristen, what happens if we drift? Because y'all, I just have to tell you at some point, you're probably going to drift. In my enthusiasm to grow our program with Leadership Lee County, I drifted a couple times thinking something would be good and had to pull myself back. So it's okay. So let's talk about, though, how can we recognize it, right? So how do we know for sure? I remember working with one of our local organizations here, and she had such great community involvement. that there were always people coming up and giving her ideas and wanting to donate things, which sounds great, but then it can get to be a lot. And I watched her navigate these situations. And in one particular example, they had somebody that wanted to donate some clothing, but that really wasn't part of what they did. And I watched her just thank them and appreciate them. But then she reminded them, this is not our mission. But hey, I could use your help with this. And y'all, I learned so much from watching her do this. Shout out to Renee. She's not watching this, but she would know who I was talking about. And so that's one of the ways that when you begin to see it, because our volunteers are great, but sometimes what they want to help with is not something that we need help with. But it's so hard to tell them no. And so we want to say yes and keep them involved. And so you will quickly see you'll go off mission when you begin to do that. So signs that you're otherwise going off it. Are you chasing funding? Are you accepting if somebody has a grant they feel like you should do? Are you going after it because that's an opportunity to get money? Or are you going after it because it fits your mission? When you lose clarity, remember we talked about clarity at the beginning. Little decisions add up to big impact. So watch your yeses, y'all. It's easy, so easy to say yes and then realize you're not in the place that you need to be. So ask yourself, are you saying yes to opportunities that don't serve our mission? And then what do you do if you catch it? How do we course correct? What are some strategies? Well, regular check-ins, like stopping to say at board meetings or staff meetings or volunteer meetings, hey, how's it going? Or are we taking a moment to have some self-awareness? And that, y'all, is a big, great term. Self-awareness. Where are you and what are you doing? Be careful you don't get so busy that you don't take time for that. But it's also you constantly bringing in there your mission when you're doing stuff. If you're always saying it, you're going to be sticking to it much more easier. So ask yourself, what mechanisms do we have in place to realign with our mission when needed? It's your checks and balances. Okay, y'all, thank you for hanging in there. We're almost to the end. Y'all are doing fantastic. Because here's where the rubber meets the road, okay? Here's where your call to action is. Living in this mission daily. And the first one, lead by example. I'd be willing to bet that every one of us could think of a leader that we've worked for who said one thing and did another. Don't be that person. Be the person that when you say something, you also do it. I'm going to tell you a little leadership trick. There is almost no quicker way to get credibility with people than to do what you say you're going to do. But it also works in reverse. To lose it, don't do what you say you're going to do. Okay? One of my favorite stories of somebody who was a fantastic mission-focused leader is I'm thinking of the Ritz-Carlton man, Howard Schultz, who is Starbucks. Y'all may have heard his name. He is the creator of Starbucks. So if you've never heard the story of how he came up with the idea for Starbucks, his vision, his mission for it is that it would be a third place, a place somewhere that's not home or work, but a third place where people could come to connect and feel like they belong. That's what he built that entire company on, those values. So he did that, built it, and then retired. But in 2008, y'all may remember the recession hit. And that's when they brought him back. His Starbucks became out of misalignment and it showed up in their profits. They weren't making money. But Howard did something very contrary to what a lot of people would do. When they were losing money, do you know what he chose to do? He chose to close. He chose to close the stores and retrain the baristas, I never say that name, in what the values and the purpose of that organization was. So when many would say, stay open, he said, no, we've got to get it right. And that's another great example of where in the short term it doesn't look good, but in the long term, it paid off dividends. But he led by example and showed that he was willing to do and back up the mission of his organization. Creating accountability. This, it can be one of the most difficult ones because the worst thing you can do as a leader is tell people this, say this, and then not hold them accountable to it. But you got to be clear in your expectations. We could have a whole nother topic on how to do that. But what I want you to keep in mind is one of the things that you can do to help your people stay on mission, to have that mission-focused leadership, create a checklist. Use some of these questions that we've gone through today. Have them use that when they're going through their decision making. The power of reflection. This, if you have heard me do other speeches or talks, I talk about this one in just about everything because I truly feel this is a superpower that a lot of us aren't connected to. If you're not taking the time to stop and reflect on what you did and learn from it, then y'all are missing a great opportunity. Our public safety, they were some of the best at this. Our police and fire and communications. Anytime they would have an incident, or sometimes even after they would have training, they would do an incident debrief. And they would simply do this, reflect on what they did, talk about it, and then decide what they would do next time. And so I have 3 questions that I would encourage you with. And this may be, it's not in the notes, so you may want to write it down. And these are my favorite 3 reflection questions that I use frequently. It's what went right, what went wrong, and what would I do differently? What went right, what went wrong, and what would I do differently? And so imagine for a minute that you've just had this big fundraising event. You've just done this gala for the first time. And you talk about a leadership moment when you bring your team together, again, whether that's board members, direct reports, volunteers, and you start the meeting reminding them, hey, y'all, can I remind you that the reason we exist, our purpose is this. Now let's think about, did we really accomplish that? During the gala, what were the things that went right that we need to be sure we kept doing? What are the things that went wrong? Maybe we didn't raise enough money. And so what would we do differently? Well, maybe we'd hit up different sponsors, or maybe we would cut some expenses. But do you see the value in this intentional activity? So the next time you go to have this fundraising gala, it's going to be way more successful than if you didn't take a moment to reflect on what it was. And a little secret too, my friends, this is a great thing for you to do as a leader to help grow yourself every day. At the end of your day, ask yourself, what went right? What went wrong? And what would I do differently? So what is one change that you can make today to better align your leadership with your mission? That's kind of the big takeaway for you. And if it's okay, I'd like to leave you with one last story. And you can tell I love stories. But and some of you may have heard this, there's a story about John F. Kennedy. And it occurred at a time when he was thinking through, or they were talking about putting a man on the moon. And so John F. Kennedy was touring NASA. And as he was going through the building, he kind of went down a side hall and he came across a gentleman. And he said to the gentleman, who by all appearances was a janitor, "What do you do here?" And the gentleman looked at him and said, "Why, Mr. President, I put men on the moon." Can you imagine if your people responded that way? If the people that you influenced in your organization looked at what they did and tied it to the big picture in such a way that it has that power, you can do this. You were put in that position because you can do this. It just may take some work and it just may take some intentionality. But if I can encourage you today, never forget that you are on mission and that the work that you do changes lives and it matters. And it's okay sometimes when you're feeling overwhelmed or you're burned out. You've got to figure out, though, how to get back on track. Because again, this is what you were made to do. And with that, I'm just so grateful to y'all again that you would take the time to listen. Before we get to the final slide that has my contact information, which again, Brittany's going to send out to you. If you have any questions, Brittany, do we have time to look and see if they have questions? Will you come help me figure out how to do that? So if y'all want to put them in the chat box, if you have a question and you want to put it in the chat box, we have about 14 minutes to do it.
And you are also welcome to unmute.
Yes.
And ask your question.
Oh, I love that y'all share. Thank you. Not seeing any questions, I don't think. Anybody have any? All right. Well, again, I hope that today added some value to you and that you leave here encouraged and ready to conquer the world. And if there is ever anything that I can do for you, please never hesitate to let me know. Thank you.
Kristen, thank you for a wonderful program. Everyone, you will be getting an email from me with a link to today's presentation and recording in a short 3-question survey, which is an opportunity to sign up to be a Carey Center nonprofit affiliate. The Carey Center Nonprofit Affiliate Program currently serves over 425 nonprofits in Alabama and beyond and offers educational programming, professional development, and networking opportunities. The Carey Center Nonprofit Affiliates are the first to learn about upcoming programming, and membership is free. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope to see you at one of our monthly virtual programs or in person for our nonprofit training series, Traveling the State. Thank you.